30 years business experience, what my MBA couldn't teach me. So decided to make this YouTube video for you to explain all the different elements of how I became such a successful at scaling businesses and how my MBA didn't actually teach me some of the core parts. So there's 7 elements. I'll tell you a little bit more about my experience later on. Let's first get into how these 7 elements work. So the first one is the real world really does beat your textbooks. So MBA taught me theory, but the real world is so messy. There's so much things going on everywhere. Deals fall apart all the time. You got people always have personal issues and personality traits and all these different things that come into it. Clients will ghost you. Like, there's just so much that your textbooks just cannot cover. I'll give you an example. One really horrific example actually was I had a female women's boots business, and at this time we had a manufacturer who was manufacturing for us. Eventually I bought a factory and manufactured ourselves, but at this time we were using a manufacturer. And because it was a boots business, it was winter, and here in Australia we have very short winters, so we have a very small window of opportunity to make the whole year's revenue. But the business was really strong, so we could easily do that. Our problem was we never had enough stock to supply the demand. Anyway, we had this factory that we'd been working with for quite a few years, and we ordered in 4 or 5 different containers full of all these leather women's boots. So we ordered those in, they start arriving, and as we're opening, all the stock was faulty, like 90% of it. And we're like, what's going on? What's happened? So to wind back a little bit, a part of the manufacturing process is I would fly over, it was manufactured in China at the time, fly over and would go and purchase the leather and would purchase all the components and bring that all over, and then we give it to the factory to make for quality control. And unfortunately, the factory had some issues going on, and all their staff stole all of our leathers and materials and so forth. So instead of telling us and working out a solution, they sent us dodgy products. But of course, the way the system works, those dodgy products had been paid for previously, and that factory shut down straight away as soon as they got our money. So here we are with a whole season of a rapidly growing business with all faulty stock. So that is something that is just not covered in the textbooks. What do you do in that situation? Just to give an outline what we did do. Basically, everybody freaked out. I went and sat down and was quiet for a moment and worked out, okay, our biggest challenge was that we had customers who needed stock. We had stores that needed inventory, and we just really needed the product made well there. So first of all, we split all the stock, what was perfectly good quality, what needed altering, and then what was unsalvageable. We partnered with some manufacturers over here at very high expense to get those boots that could be salvaged to the standard that we needed, and obviously the ones that we were fine, we kept. I changed the price on all of it. I lifted the cost of all the boots up substantially because we now had a real big supply problem, so the price went up and the market didn't care at all. It was still absolutely strong for our boots. And I then flew over to some manufacturers who had the skill sets we needed to produce these types of boots because they were very high end, and negotiated a just-in-time manufacturing system, which is, again, I would go and purchase a range of the leathers, and as we needed a pair of boots, they would manufacture that pair of boots and send it directly to us, which meant that we didn't have to have huge amounts of stock on hand because of our cash was obviously limited given this extreme example. So yeah, again, your textbooks cannot explain that sort of real world experience, and it didn't really help me make those decisions. What helped me was, having people around me that knew what they were doing and give advice. So that is real world beats textbooks, hands down. That's only one example of the many times that the real world experience was more important. Okay, the second is networking over knowledge. So your relationships are more valuable than your degree. Bold, genuine relationships where you can talk to each other really face to face and with integrity and honesty, they are way more important than any degree you could have. And the reason for this is that people do business with people, and trust is everything. That's one of my sayings across the board in every business I've owned, is that it all comes down to trust. If you can't trust the people you're dealing with, then it's going to fall down. This is why some people get elected as well, not because they like them, but they trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, even if they don't like what they're going to do. Okay, finding one of the examples of when my network has really helped me over knowledge is when unexpectedly a landlord for one of my businesses, which was an entertainment business, sold the property from under us. So he was saying one thing to us, but was doing something else behind our back, which hurts. This is why you need really strong contracts. At the time, we just decided not to fight that one. We just decided to move the business as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, it was a very specific type of business that needed a specific type of location, and that was very difficult to find. So I reached out to my network and I said, look, I've got all these different, things that this needs to fulfill. So in this case, it was an outdoor laser tag business, and we needed a place where there lots of kids and adults can run around screaming and yelling day and night. Needs to be outdoors. It needs to be able to look like a war zone. So that's important. It needed to be close to the town. There was a whole lot of different factors that it needed to fit. And I sort of tried everything I could in relation to, going to real estate agents, searching online, Google Earth, all that sort of stuff. I tried it all, everything. And I was at my wit's end, and I'm like, somebody must know of some location that we could use. So I put it out to my network, and surprise, surprise, it came back with not just one location, but multiple. And they were fantastic locations, like the race course, which is right in the center of town, was happy to give us a section of their grounds that we could use, and they had offices and they had everything we need. So my network was way more powerful than what's out there. So don't underestimate that network. And your network is really more powerful than your knowledge. Okay, number 3, learn to adapt. Okay, adaptability when scaling is, it's everything. It's what you do 24/7. It becomes a part of who you are. So the market doesn't care about your qualifications, right? It cares about how you make it feel, what value you bring. So you need to stay flexible, you need to solve problems, and you need to pivot when needed. I honestly thought that when I was going through my MBA that it would save me from a whole lot of business problems, but it really didn't. So prior to doing my MBA, I actually had multiple businesses, and I did really well in some and really bad in others, and there was always these ups and downs. And I thought, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I really enjoy it. I'm going to go and get my MBA. So I signed up, got in. I actually fast-tracked it. I did it in under a year. I just head down, bum up, let's get this done, and really enjoyed the process. But coming out at the other end, I realized that it really did not solve any of my problems. The thing that I really needed to embrace was just being adaptable, adapting to the different things that keep flying at you from lots of different directions, and to accept that that is the role of scaling a business, that's a part of what it is, and instead of resisting it, actually enjoying it. Okay, number 4, failure is a teacher. Wow, I tell you what, I did a speech to a bunch of actual business women. There was about 150 of them, and they flew me over. I, had a big auditorium, and it was the first time I'd ever actually done any public. Well, it was the first time I'd been flown away to do public speaking, and so for me it was quite exciting, and I was full of energy and couldn't wait to get there. And I got there, and the audience was highly professional, very high end. They dressed beautifully, they really knew their stuff, and I was now scared. Anyway, I got up and I told them basically about my journey within the Bennett's Boots, which is just one of my businesses so far at that time. And it was a journey like this. We had big highs, big lows, lots of roundabouts, and all the way through, they were quiet. I'm explaining this, explaining that. I got responses, but they were quiet the whole way through. And I was a bit like, oh, okay, I don't know if I did a good job or not. And then I got down, and the lady who had hired me said, oh my goodness, that's the best speech they've ever had. We have never had this bunch of women this quiet for that long. And the reason that is because everybody experiences failure. If you're not failing, you're not really actually going anywhere, because moving forward and getting better means you have to push your boundaries. And to push your boundaries, you have to push past where you know, and where you don't know, you can fail at, and you're more likely to fail at. So pushing your boundaries, failing not intentionally, you put your best foot forward, but everybody fails. There's no way around that. So one of my biggest failures, and what it taught me, was when in Business Acquisitions International, my role was to purchase businesses. So I would go around, do all my research on an industry, then I'll find key businesses within that industry, and I would purchase that business, and then we would scale it. Very straightforward. Then once it's scaled, we would exit. I decided that I would like to do one that was local, because I was doing bigger businesses and so forth, and I wanted to do a smaller local one. And I did one and it worked, and then I decided to do another one. Unfortunately, the one I chose came with a lot of things that were hidden from me, and a lot of things that I just didn't know. So I went in there expecting there to be a store manager and staff, and within the first few weeks they were not there. And I found myself, because I was the local one in the store, having to learn the whole industry. As in, I understood the industry on a business level perspective, but I did not know how to design irrigation. I did not know what the parts were. I did not know all these different elements. So I had to, on top of it being a new business that we're taking over, so we had to learn their system, their computer systems and stock management and suppliers and so forth. So there was lots of elements there that I was thrown in the deep end to learn on my own. So this failure of getting into this business, which I ended up, well, lots of things happened with that business, but anyway, this getting in there and failing to actually have the right contracts and the right people in place meant that I had to learn really fast, and I mean exceptionally fast. And I give credit to myself, necessity is the master of learning, isn't it? I did learn how to design irrigation, and I did learn all the different, well, majority of the different elements to, the top sort of basic systems that you can put together. But that really highlights to me that failure is a teacher. The other thing that taught me, other than obviously I got to learn a whole different industry on another level, which meant I could create different ways of broadening that business by that deeper understanding, is that if I didn't fail in that, then I wouldn't know the elements to look for into the future. And I think there's just so many failures in my life, so many. It's not funny, but it is, that every single one you learn from, and that's not something to be ashamed of. It is just, as long as you learn something. Okay, moving on to the next one. Cash flow is king. So if you want to scale a business, no matter what, cash flow is king. There's no doubt about it. You definitely need to get some capital behind you to scale. That's really important. But the cash flow, you just don't learn that accurately enough in doing an MBA. So a lot of the times when they're doing the finances in the MBA, they're focusing on really massive corporations, or where, they already have like accountants and like a team of 20 or 30 in their finance section. So you're not going to be making the decisions that you're learning how to make in an MBA. It seems quite strange that that's what they focus on. So what is really important to learn when running a business and scaling a business is the fundamentals of finance. MBA does gloss over this a little bit, but it really doesn't give you an understanding of the cash flow component of how a business runs. Now, you can be as profitable as anything, but if you don't have cash in the bank to pay your bills, you're not in business anymore. You're insolvent, and that means you're trading illegally. And we do not want to do that. I think I'll continue with the example I gave before on cash flow. One of the ways I got around that, which again wasn't taught in my MBA, is when that shipment came in and it was all wrong, we went into a just-in-time manufacturing process, as I said before. What this did is because we had reduced funds because of the faulty stock coming in, it meant that our cash flow was really restricted. We had to really focus on what we can do to continue the business, let alone have it scale. So by doing the just-in-time manufacturing, it meant the money went out as the customer paid. So the customer paid for it, and then we paid the money for it to be produced. Yes, we had paid a small percentage on some of the materials, but a majority of the materials were only manufactured at the time and purchased at the time of after the sale. So that helped our cash flow go through. So when you're looking at cash flow, a lot of the times innovation is really critical to making sure that you've got the cash you need to keep moving forward, and that you can then balance that out. We all have tough times in businesses. So cash flow is definitely king. I'm quite sure there's a book and probably 100 courses out there about it, because the reality is that learning how to navigate where to put your cash and when to put it there is crucial to keep going. I've had many friends who have been investing in the future of their business, and they're doing really great doing that, but they've missed out on the point that they have to pay the bills now or tomorrow, and that what they're choosing to do may not reap results until it's too late. So cash flow, incredibly important. Definitely one of the key things that I didn't learn accurately enough when I did my MBA. Number 6, teamwork wins. We all know about this. A great team beats a solo genius. Treat your employees like partners, not just as numbers. So when I think of teamwork wins, what I'm really talking about here is not just your staff. Obviously, there's plenty out there about how you could treat your staff well and they'll stand by you and all that sort of stuff. And hands down, that is very true. I've got no qualms with that at all. I tend to pay more than whatever's going in the industry and give a lot more autonomy and freedom to my staff, because when you treat them well, they treat you well. But one of the other things that is a part of your team is actually not just your staff, but your suppliers as well. And these like your accountants, your lawyers, your product suppliers, your service suppliers, all those sort of suppliers are also a part of your team. So working with them as opposed against them, really, really important to making sure that you're a real success in business, and not something that was really focused on. The other part of this team are other stakeholders, obviously, but your family and friends. Now, I know this goes against a lot of what, like current things out there. You should keep everything separate, but your life is not separate. You are not split into, I'm work over here and I'm home over there. We don't live in a world like that. We never have. And this trying to separate everything doesn't really work. So when I say what the MBA didn't teach me, it didn't teach me how important it is that your outer circle is by your side and helping you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And that means, so for me, I've got kids, it means putting the time into the kids and then explaining to them, look, mum needs to go off and do this because she's trying to achieve this and so forth, instead of just going, oh, I'm off, I'm going to work, and expecting them to understand. Especially when there's big challenges and times changing and I'm traveling and all those different things, having my kids on my team and them understanding not the details of the business obviously, but just that what I'm trying to achieve, really, really important. Same with husband and friends and so forth. The amount of times I've had friends pop in and help pack some boxes because we've just had a massive order or this or that, because they've known my journey and they know where I'm at. That has been really important, and nothing is talked about, I don't think, in any MBA or any business course on how important that outer team is. Just circling back to your staff, one of the key things that I do that I've found has worked really well is to let them be a team. Unfortunately, I haven't found a winning system where I get to be the boss and a part of the team. There always seems to be a slight divide. But if I can get them to be a team and I come in and support them, then that works really well. And I've done that in a few different ways. One of the key ways I do it is giving them autonomy to get the job done. So for example, I had multiple retail stores for the boots business. And instead of me saying, you go this time, you do this, you do that, or have a manager saying you're scheduled for this and you're scheduled for that and so forth, I let them work out between them who's covering the store at what time. So they got to change it around as they needed and as their life required. People who wanted more hours offered to do more. People who needed more time off offered to do that. And that became a real sticking point for them for staying with us, because they had that autonomy to sort of move around and to work with their teammates basically. So the other staff within there made them feel like they were part of something together. So letting go a little bit and giving them the autonomy to do it. Yes, they still had a manager that would oversee it, that they could call if there was a drama or anything, but giving them that autonomy really made them a team themselves. And then they worked together, and the amazing results I got with that was great. I also did that a lot on the skirmish business, because again, it was entertainment business. Times were all over the place and people had different things, or at school and so forth. So giving them the autonomy and the tools to do that. So we had I think it was a Facebook page, private Facebook page, that they would all connect on and say, hey, can someone cover this shift, or can someone do this and that? And it worked really well. So teamwork, definitely a big one, but teamwork, not just your staff team and your suppliers and your stakeholders, but your team is everybody that you really associate with, and you want them all on your side and a part of your journey. And that's how you get to have really quick scaling businesses and a lot go on there. Okay. And the seventh one of what I didn't learn in my MBA is taking action. So overthinking does kill momentum a lot of the time. Yes, you need to think. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely a lot of thinking and analyzing and so forth going on. But overthinking really does kill momentum. You need to execute, learn, and repeat. There's no way around it. You have to do something, get a result, and then iterate from that. Trying to think through every scenario is really a waste of time. You need to get the action, get the response, and then change from there. So I found that my MBA taught me to plan everything endlessly and try and look at every little element to the nth degree. At some point, you really have to trust in yourself and go, okay, I understand that there could be elements that don't go the way I expect them to go, but that I will be able to pivot and move and create what I need to create. That is not saying that you don't put in the preparation. I just did a talk at Toastmasters, and my daughter is a part of that as well. And she did her first speech, and she got up, and the first thing she said is, I only did this speech 2 days ago, so here I go. And she did her speech, and she did really well. She did read a lot of it, but she did really well. And afterwards, I was talking to my mentor at Toastmasters, and she said, yeah, a lot of people use that as an excuse. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. So by not preparing enough, that's your excuse to fail, right? That's your excuse not to do as well. Real, success, real making a difference, really going for something is scary. If you put all your effort in, you put all your time and your energy and you practice and you do all the things you need to do, and then you go and do it and it fails, that really hurts. So a lot of people try and protect themselves by taking action too quickly without doing the prep work, or doing a little bit of prep work and then saying, oh, I'll just give it a go. And that's not really what we're talking about here when we talk about taking action. What I'm talking about here is taking, courageous action on things that you've already done the research for. So the MBA does teach you to plan, but there's a point where you have to go, okay, I've done a big chunk of this planning and looking at everything. Now's the time to take action and see what results I get from the market. The market is ever changing. It is constantly moving this way, that way, and it never reacts the way it should. Yeah. So with the MBA, teaches you to plan constantly, and you'll never get any results back from that. You need to take action, but make sure it's action that's actually prepared for and planned. So a little bit about me. I'm Amanda Bennett. I have been in business for over 30 years. I have run companies in China, UK, Australia, and I've been a professional speaker across all those countries and more, US and a few other places. And my skill set is really in scaling businesses. I have a coaching program in that if you're interested. And I have scaled multiple businesses, and I've sort of developed this model where I know I can go into a business, put in place all the things I need to do, and create the results of the business scaling by tenfold. That's what I do. Obviously, I've got my MBA. I'm also CEO certified. I've got all that background, theory under my belt as well. But where the real reason why you should listen to what I'm saying here basically is that I've done it so many times now. I've built businesses. I've scaled them so many times that these are really key things that you just don't get when you read a book. Anyway, that's enough about me. So if you're worried that you don't have an MBA and that you can't do it, it's not really crucial. It does help, don't get me wrong. It fills gaps in knowledge. It filled a few gaps in my knowledge and terminology as well. But overall, you don't need an MBA. You need guts. You need grit. And you need to willing to learn and a willingness to fail and get up and dust yourself off and reiterate and change around things and go again. And that's how you win in business.